The discovery after marriage was a shock. My in-laws had a debt of $15 million, and for some reason, I was supposed to pay it off. I thought I would try my best for the sake of the family, but then I noticed something. It was unforgivable. They were just enjoying themselves behind my back, planning to use me to pay off their debt. From that moment on, I started a certain plan to plunge my husband and in-laws, who would be overjoyed that the debt was paid off 5 years later, into hell. I am Susan. I lost my mother at a young age and lived with my father, who also passed away a few years ago. The person who encouraged me when I was feeling down for being alone was my old friend. It was through her that I met my husband, Lawrence. I met Lawrence when I went out for a drink with my friend after a long time, and we ended up drinking together. He had just been dumped by his girlfriend and was complaining about it over drinks.
I'm lonely. Is my life supposed to be like this?
Hearing that, it was friend who suggested in high spirits, Susan is single right now, right? Why don't you two just date? My friend in high spirits arranged for Lawrence and I to exchange contacts and even set up the next date. It was somewhat forced, but she seemed to have noticed that Lawrence was my type. As expected, a friend who has known me for a long time. I was a little excited about the date with Lawrence that was set up. To put it bluntly, we had so much fun that it didn't feel like our first date. After that, we started dating almost every week. When we first met, you had just broken up with your previous girlfriend, right? Why did you break up with her?
Well, let's not talk about the past. You're here with me now, Susan.
Lawrence was kind and fun to talk to. I wondered why he was dumped by his previous girlfriend, but at the time, I didn't really care. After dating for about a year, Lawrence proposed to me. Of course, there was no reason to refuse. With joy, I chose to become his wife. When I nervously visited his parents' house for the first time, my in-laws welcomed me. Susan, you work for a major corporation, don't you? That's amazing. Yes. Do you plan to continue working after marriage? Yes, I do. It's good to have a dual income. It will give us some leeway in our lives. My stay-at-home mother-in-law surprisingly supported my job. I was a bit relieved, thinking I would be told to quit my job and take care of the household. Lawrence also agreed that I should continue working after marriage. Thus, without any particular trouble with my in-laws, my married life started. We bought a house under my name, and just when I was thinking about our future, Lawrence came to me with a serious look and said,
I have something to tell you. The truth is, my family has debt.
Huh? I had never heard such a story before. How much is the debt?
At first, it wasn't so much, but as the repayment was delayed, it just kept growing.
I asked with trepidation. Just tell me, how much is the debt?
About $15 million.
That...
Even if we try to pay it back, my parents are living on their pension, right? They can't pay it back as much as they want to, and the debt is just growing.
Huh, I see.
Susan, before we got married, you mentioned that Mr. Father-in-law has some inheritance, right? Frankly speaking, how much is that?
The conversation took a turn I wasn't expecting. I had a nagging suspicion, and unfortunately, I was right. Lawrence asked,
Can't we use the inheritance you got from your father to pay back my parents' debt?
Why should I? I have got my own mortgage to pay.
It's not manageable if you continue to pay little by little.
What about your savings, Lawrence?
I have no savings.
But before we got married, you said you had some money put aside, remember?
Well, that was... I was just going with the flow, trying to match, Susan. I really don't have any savings. That's why only you can handle it.
Lawrence tried to persuade me with all his might. Even though it was highly unfair, I knew we couldn't just ignore the debt. The problem was I didn't have as much as $15 million in savings. I only have $10 million from the inheritance. What about the rest?
We both earn good money, right? Plus, you do a lot of overtime. I want you to use that overtime pay to repay the debt.
So he was implying that I should use all the money I inherited from my father and my hard-earned money to repay the debt? Looking at his face, it seemed that there was no way out of this other than me helping him out. Fortunately, it was not an impossible sum if we combined the inheritance and my salary. I reluctantly agreed to his request. Later, my in-laws showed up at our place. Susan, you're going to repay our debt for us? Thank you so much. Lawrence replied to my tearful and grateful mother-in-law with a proud look.
Mom, you should thank me too. If I hadn't married Susan, things wouldn't have turned out this well.
Well, you're right about that. I thought she was a good person from the first time I met her. There's no doubt about your good judgment, Lawrence. Even my father-in-law was overjoyed, hugging Lawrence.
Well done, Lawrence. Now we can walk around proudly without worrying about debt collectors.
We can finally afford to eat out.
Let's celebrate by grilling some steaks.
Agreed. I watched my husband and his parents giddy with joy with a stupefied expression. They owed money, and it wasn't like they were the ones repaying it, and they were talking about eating out and having steaks. Perhaps noticing my exasperated look, Lawrence finally quieted them down.
Hey, calm down, both of you. This is exactly why your debts keeps increasing. You spend money frivolously and you can't even do basic calculations.
As Lawrence scolded them, my mother-in-law retaliated. Isn't that the same for you, Lawrence?
Why me?
You have always been a show-off, Lawrence. When you liked a girl, you would go on expensive dates and give gifts, even if it meant borrowing money. And when your lack of funds was revealed, you ended up getting dumped, remember?
What? I've learned from my past mistakes. That's why I married Susan, who doesn't need me to spend money. Isn't that smart of me?
Well, it did help us out, that's for sure. I see. So that's why Lawrence kept quiet about the reason he was dumped by his previous girlfriend? Listening to Lawrence and his parents' conversation, it felt like he married me for my money, and it made me uncomfortable. The way they were talking about repaying the debt, it was as if they were openly saying Lawrence is a smart one for landing a cash cow. My mother-in-law continued speaking. Lawrence has always had this tell. Whenever he's got a girl he likes, he starts spending money like crazy, you know? Upon hearing this, I realized something. Recently, he had been withdrawing money frequently from our household account. Could it be? Ignoring my suspicion, Lawrence, seemingly struck by a brilliant idea, spoke up.
Exactly, Susan. You've been sending money to my parents' house every month, right? But our family is notoriously bad at managing money. So from now on, could you send it directly to the debtor instead?
What? I was confused by the sudden and selfish proposal. However, my in-laws reacted with exaggerated enthusiasm. What a great idea. Here, Susan, this is the account number for the transfer. My mother-in-law said, handing me a piece of paper with the account number on it. And how much will you be able to repay each month? How many years until it's all paid off? She asked as if it was someone else's issue. Though I was irritated, I responded, firstly, I'll allocate the $10 million from the inheritance to repay the debt. So there's only $5 million left. If we can pay between $800 and $900 each month, I think we can finish in about 5 years. 5 years, huh? I guess it can't be helped if it takes that long. And so I ended up repaying my in-laws' debt bit by bit. First, I sent the $10 million from the inheritance to the creditors as a lump sum. This should keep them at bay for a while, but then I discovered something. My husband had been having an affair behind my back. No wonder his spending habits had gotten out of hand. I won't stand for him having all the fun. If that's how he wants to play it, I'll play it too. He is in for a surprise in 5 years. For the next 5 years, I handled all communications with the creditors while my husband and in-laws went about their lives as usual. All this for my secret plan. I looked forward to the shock on their faces 5 years later. And then one day, 5 years later, Lawrence, looking at the bank card, said,
Good job, Susan. You've been making consistent payments each month, and now the remaining $5 million is fully paid.
Yes, that's right.
I'm really grateful to you, and I actually have something important to talk about.
Something important?
I want us to break up.
Lawrence said it with a straight face.
Now that the debt problem is nearly resolved, there's a girl I want to be with. If we break up, she's going to live here. So you should go to, my parents' house.
What? I immediately got defensive. Hold on. Why do I have to go to your parents' house?
She doesn't like dealing with the in-laws and all that. My parents are still terrible with money. It would be easier for you to manage them if you live together, right?
You said you want to break up, didn't you? Even so, you still want me to take care of your parents? That doesn't make any sense at all.
My parents are completely dependent on you. You should take care of them until the end. Besides, if they accumulate debt again, it's going to be a real pain to repay. And by its, I mean your pain.
He said, laughing. A husband who dumped the task of debt repayment onto his wife and enjoyed an affair in secret. Not only that, but he also planned to have me take care of his parents after our divorce. While he lived with his new woman, I would never allow it. There is no way I would let that happen. I am fed up with Lawrence's selfishness. Barely controlling my anger, I replied with an attempt at calmness. I completely agree with the divorce.
Oh, good thing you're understanding.
But you're the one who's leaving.
Huh? What are you talking about? This is my house.
That's not quite right. Remember when we bought this house? The entire down payment came from my savings, and didn't we put it in my name?
Did we?
At the time you said, I don't want to be the one responsible for the loan if something happens. That's why I don't want the house in my name. I should have been more suspicious then. Had I realized how irresponsible you were, I wouldn't have wasted so much time.
Huh? Well, whatever. You're out of money, and it would be a shame if you had nowhere to live. I'll let you stay.
Out of money?
Yeah, right. You've used up all your inheritance to pay off debts, and you've transferred all your extra income. You must be flat broke.
I do have some savings.
What? There's no way you do. I just checked your transfer history.
Then you should understand all my money is in another account. At this, Lawrence looked momentarily taken aback, then panicked.
Wait. What do you mean another account?
He frantically double-checked his bank book. It was then that Lawrence finally realized that the account I had been depositing money into every month was separate from the one we were using to pay off our debts.
So, what about my parents' debt?
Of course, that's still there. Since you left dealing with creditors entirely up to me, you probably didn't notice what was happening on my end. Upon hearing this, Lawrence's face turned pale as a sheet.
You've been tricking me all along?
Tricking you? Aren't you guilty of the same?
What are you talking about?
You have been having an affair behind my back, haven't you? At this, Lawrence froze.
When did I ever cheat on you?
You would know better than me, right? I found out about it 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
I became suspicious after a conversation I overheard between you and my mother-in-law. Apparently, whenever you get a new girlfriend, you start spending money recklessly. That's when I noticed your spending habits change.
No way. You can't be serious.
I suspected something, so I kept a close eye on you. I kept seeing signs of a woman in your life. Once I confirmed the affair, I decided to move the money I had been planning to use to pay off the debt to a separate account instead, to secure a living for myself after I divorced you, Lawrence. Upon hearing the truth, Lawrence was stunned for a moment.
I need to call my parents.
In response to Lawrence's call, his parents rushed to our house. They must have already heard about the situation because they came at me with fury.
Susan, what do you mean you haven't been paying off the debt?
Facing my father-in-law, who was red with rage, I replied in a cold tone. Why would I be obligated to pay off the debts of someone who will soon be a stranger? Besides, it's unthinkable to give my salary to a husband who betrayed me.
A stranger? Betrayed? What on earth are you talking about?
Father-in-law looked confused. I didn't miss the flustered expression on my mother-in-law's face standing next to him. Mother-in-law, you understand what I'm talking about, don't you? I don't know. Playing dumb won't help you. It was your own mother who enlightened me about the telltale signs when Lawrence becomes infatuated with a new woman. She can't miss it, but that is... So, it's not just about money. It seems your moral compass is also a bit shaky, isn't it? That's rude. I just want Lawrence to be happy. Lawrence's happiness, huh? So it's okay to trample on my happiness, the one who has been paying off your son's debts? You're quite a monster. At that, Lawrence's mother fell into an uncomfortable silence. Then his father, looking regretful, appealed to me.
Susan, I'm really sorry for what my son did. Can't you forgive him and let it go? The money he shifted to another account, it was probably just out of spite, right?
After saying this, Lawrence's father scolded him.
What on earth are you doing cheating on such a wonderful wife for another woman? Apologize sincerely and beg for Susan's forgiveness, and return the money in the account for paying off the debt.
I sighed heavily. It seems their nature hasn't changed one bit since 5 years ago. They're just obsessed with their own debts. I don't care how much you apologize. I'm not planning to forgive you. I don't intend to become a part of your family either. He seems to want to divorce quickly and be with his new girlfriend, so why not leech off her this time? Unable to bear my words any longer, Lawrence shouted,
I can't let her do that.
Hearing this, I totally lost it. So, it's fine for me to do it, but not her? What do you think people are?
That's not... You've always been understanding and listened to me, but she's selfish and it's hard when she's upset.
Well, you're right. I listen to you too much. There are parts I need to reflect on. So from now on, I'll do as I please. First of all, I'll make sure to claim compensation for your cheating. And I'll have you return the $10 million from my father's inheritance that was used for debt repayment. At this, both Lawrence and his father panicked.
Whoa, wait a minute. You know I don't have any savings. I can't possibly pay compensation.
I don't care. Why don't you ask your girlfriend to help you pay, just like you did to me? But just so you know, I'll be claiming compensation from her too.
Even from her? She might break up with me if I do that.
Oh, what cheap affection. If she can't even be prepared for that much, why would she meddle with a married man?
Susan, please reconsider.
Lawrence's father also started begging me.
Susan, we are begging you. We can't survive if we go back to being in debt.
In response, I shrugged dramatically. Well, I understand. Your parents, father-in-law and mother-in-law are struggling enough with paying off the remaining $5 million in debt.
So, does this mean we don't have to pay back the inheritance portion of $10 million?
That's right, I won't be demanding it from your parents. Seeing their relief, Lawrence looked at me expectantly.
Then you'll withdraw the compensation claim against me too. If you've given up on the inheritance, then give up on the compensation as well.
What? Are you kidding? Why would I give up on getting back my father's precious inheritance?
But you just said I won't claim the $10 million.
Yes, from your parents. Instead, I'll add the $10 million refund to the compensation from you.
What? You're joking, right? Don't you have a heart?
I'll give you back those words just as they are. You took away my father's inheritance and behind the scenes you were having an affair. That's not something a person with a decent heart does.
Susan, I'm begging you.
Quiet. I never want to see your face again. From now on, we'll communicate through a lawyer. Bye. After yelling at Lawrence, I stormed out of the house. I went straight to the lawyer's office and told them everything that had happened. A month later, I completed the divorce and compensation claim procedures through the lawyer and finally cut ties with Lawrence and my in-laws. Though I didn't get the full amount, we settled on a compensation amount that was significantly more than average. Lawrence, with no savings, was buried in debt just like his parents, but that's a fitting end for that family. Thanks to making forceful deposits into a separate account for these past 5 years, I was able to save quite a bit of money at a fast pace. With the compensation money as well, I think I'll treat myself to some good food and do what I enjoy for a while. Once I've refreshed, I feel like I will be ready to tackle whatever comes next with renewed vigor.